life, you know, but I am better. But I'm okay. But when I don't talk about it, people get scared that, oh, he's lost a lot of weight. And he's, but I just, so everyone who asks me online, I'm totally okay. Everything's fine.
Is this not like exercising or something? I thought you'd be.
No, I lost the weight before I got sick. In fact, losing the weight saved my life. For those who are on the fence about whether you should or shouldn't, because I literally, like 10 doctors were like, yeah, if you didn't lose the weight, you wouldn't be here.
Now you're good? You're feeling good?
Yeah, no, I feel great, but I had lost the weight based on healthy brain activity.
Right.
And then I got sick unrelated, and now I'm okay. But what was amazing about it was Marvel and DC just coming together and being awesome and just being good friends and good partners and letting me finish my work at Marvel. It was amazing, yeah. Yeah. Because, you know.
But you have to tell me, is there any way to lose weight without exercising or dieting? Because I'm trying to do it without both of those things, you know?
Well, it ends up, I'm an extreme case. It ends up I was eating like 30 to 40,000 calories a day as I was stress eating through my Ultimate Spider-Man run for 18 years. So, and then it occurred to me, if I stopped doing that, because I'd still ride my bike like all day, but I was just consuming an amazing amount of food, and I just stopped and gone. It was gone in 2 seconds. So it was, my body did not want to be heavy at all. It was crazy. So it was nice, because, you know, in our business, you just sit in your chair and balloon. That's all we do. There's nothing else to do. You know?
No matter how hot you are when you come into comics, you will be fat eventually. You know, it's like, because you just sit down all day and you're on the phone and you're on Twitter all day, aren't you?
Yeah, I know.
You know?
It's just a job that.
We were so hot when we started at Marvel. I mean, we were
so hot.
I think the word would be beautiful. I think beautiful was actually the word for us.
Joe used to refer to us as his beautiful boys.
Do you know there was a time when we were both at Marvel, we were both doing quite pivotal books at the time, and they wouldn't let us ride in the same taxi, you know, like Air Force One and Air Force Two. They would always separate Brian and I in case there was a crash and we both died. I was kind of weirdly proud of that. I remember thinking.
No, we were in Pittsburgh. I remember we were in Pittsburgh, and Joe would not let us get in the same cab, and I was so touched. I was like, aw, I've never been worth anything to anyone before.
He wasn't thinking about us. He was thinking about market share.
It wasn't about us at all. Yeah, it was. Yeah, he couldn't believe it was working out with these two idiots, and I don't know why, but let them go.
Well, it's funny. Just before I came on stage, I went for a pee, and I was talking to one of my friends at the urinal, and like he said to me, "Did you and Bendis anticipate this when you went to Marvel?" They said, "Here you are doing this crazy retrospective of the most fun 18 years, isn't it? You know, we were like younger than Justin Bieber, I think, when we went to Marvel, weren't we? We were like 30, and I mean, there couldn't have been two less likely people to work. You know, it's like we were both indie guys. I was completely failing at DC Comics, you know, just like getting nowhere.
You were more than failing. You were burning it down as you were going. You were throwing babies out windows, and you were.
And I wrote, when I left DC, I wrote a resignation letter to somebody I was working with, and I said, "You're such a creative coward." I said, "I cannot believe that you were the fastest sperm to reach your mother's egg when you were a baby." And I thought, there's no going back from this. It was like, you know, when George Costanza left, you know, it was like that.
I wanted to do that at Marvel after I had left, and everything went well, and we were all friends, and all feelings were good. There was a retreat coming. There was a retreat last December, and I knew the retreat was coming. It was the first one I hadn't been to, and I was just going to show up like George Costanza, and then I forget. I think maybe Jerry told me Jerry Dugan told me to sit there like Ralph Macchio with the newspaper and just don't talk to anybody. But it's a very inside joke. For CB's laughing his ass off over there, but anyway.
But yeah, I mean, it's funny. I mean, to think 18 years ago. Like, I mean, we went into this thinking it was going to fail, and I think Marvel went into it thinking it was going to fail. They were just trying everything.
No, people don't. People can't even imagine this. But when we first visited, they were in bankruptcy, and they were selling furniture for money.
I got charged for a coffee. Somebody said to me, "Would you like a coffee?" And I was like, "Yes." And they said that'll be $1. It's like Marvel had no money at all, didn't they?
No, and the bullpen was dark. Remember, it was all dark because they were literally keeping the lights off to save money. And I remember very clearly a wall of like knocked over filing cabinets stacked on top of each other with a Post-it note that said "sold." And I literally was like, "Oh, am I going to write the last Spider-Man comic? Like, is this the end of the road? Like, is this why we got in? Because everybody else like left for video games and a decent paycheck." But I was like, and I remember we said, "All right, so we'll write the last Marvel comics, and we can tell everyone we did that." You know,
It was funny. Like Joe was so contagious. Like Joe
Yeah.
Quesada had just been made editor-in-chief. And it's funny what a difference one or two people can make, isn't it? You know, like Joe Quesada and Bill James, who was president of the company at the time. And they were so charismatic and so interesting. I took a pay cut. I was making no money at DC, and I somehow took a pay cut to come to Marvel. I got even less when I went to Marvel. But Joe convinced me it was like the best move I was ever making, and he was right. You know, it was
Right.
great, wasn't it? Because there's nothing more interesting than to go into a company that's on its knees, because they kind of let you do something crazy, don't they?
So, like a lot of you, I'm kind of obsessed with Mark and how his brain works. And I've had like a front row seat to some great Mark moments. And one of them is at our first time we were at Marvel. I remember the first retreat was at like a card table in the break room.
Oh,
remember?
yeah.
You remember? It was
Yeah.
like me, you, Joe, CB was there, and just a few other people. It was like 8 people. And you said, I have an idea. Marvel zombies, but they're really zombies. And I remember there was a quiet, and I remember literally thinking, I'm embarrassed I heard that. But it was a genius idea. It was a genius idea. It was one of those, you're so brilliant at like...
Everybody in the room
Yeah.
laughed at me.
Oh, that they laughed in
every
your
single
face.
person.
Yeah.
You weren't alone. And I remember Joe saying, "Why did we even fly you out here?" You know? But by next day, it somehow seemed...
Yeah, no, and then it
people
was the
thought
biggest
okay.
thing in the world. It was so funny. It was a greenlit book. But I just, that memory of you, just that unfettered, it's like you knew it was a brilliant idea. You didn't need, and nothing stopped you. Like when Joe said that, it didn't dissuade you.
I think
You
it's-
didn't guess.
I think it means I'm on some kind of spectrum, you know. I just, you know.
No, but I do think you kind of need that in a kind of way. You kind of
Yeah,
just believe. No, I got it. I know what it is.
You know my favourite retreat moment? And somebody always says to me, what's Bendis like? You know, because you're never really in Scotland. I'm never really out your way and everything. And so people back home say, what's Bendis like? I really love his stuff and everything. And I always say, like, Bendis is genuinely the sweetest guy. And it's kind of weird because you do quite violent stuff, you know, and dark stuff and everything. But I was like, Bendis is so sweet. And they said, what do you mean? And I was saying, well, nobody's ever had a crossword with Bendis. But I have a tiny anecdote. I don't know if you remember this. No, it's nice. It kind of sums you up brilliantly. And it was like, we had one of those retreats where there was like 40 people around the table, and you cracked a joke, and it was a great joke, but it was very slightly, I won't name the editor, at an editor's expense, just very slightly. I mean, it was gentle, but everybody in the room really guffawed, and Brian went instantly ashamed. It was like classic Jewish kid, you know. He was just like, I feel so bad about this, you know. But it was a great joke. It was worth it. And even the guy laughed, right? And after, we did an 8-hour meeting. And then afterwards, I was saying, are you coming for dinner? And he says, I feel really bad about that joke about that guy, you know. And I was like, he's fine. He was laughing. It's okay. And he was like, no, I feel terrible. And he didn't come to dinner. And then I texted him and said, you coming out for a drink? And he went, no, I can't stop thinking about that joke with that guy. It was like a Woody Allen was writing his life. It was amazing, you know.
I'm laughing because you're thinking some cute little anecdote. My wife is like, this is my daily existence. This goes on every day. Anyway, go ahead.
And next morning, I saw him at breakfast, and he was just sitting like a ghost. And he said, I couldn't sleep last night. I need to go and say something to this guy, you know. And before the meeting, I saw Brian over in the corner of the room. There was 40 people in the room, and I saw him talking to the guy, and the guy going, I don't care, you know, this kind of thing. You know? But then it was like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders, and I think that absolutely sums you up, isn't it? I think your
What
worst
sums
nightmare
me up is that I remember the joke. I know exactly what you're
know
talking
exactly.
about. I still think he's upset about it, and he just decided to move on. So, and that's why I got to write Peter Parker for 18 years, because that's how my brain works.
You should text him an apology from here. Send him another
I will.
apology.
I will. There's going to be, I've told my wife, I can tell there's going to be a lot of me in the old home, just whatever texting is. When we're in the old home, I'll be doing that, just apologizing for everything I've ever said or done. So anyway. You know, it's funny because, you know, my anecdote about and it's funny. Here's what I'll say. Because you drive American comic creators crazy. Do you have a sense of that?
No, not at all.
You're brassy and you say crazy shit all the time. And you know you tweet your craziness and yeah, you know you're riding people. I know you know you're riding
I
people.
really don't. For me, this is like,
But-
this is a revelation.
Like you guys know, like when he years ago started a bet with Ain't It Cool News about how the guy who played Jesus was going to be Superman, and then he goes, you know for a fact that guy's going to be Superman. You bet like $1,000 of my royalties for my new comic book, Kick-Ass, that, or was it Wanted or Kick-Ass, was that this guy's gonna be Superman, and they ran headlines about this for like a week, about that Jim Caviezel is gonna be Superman.
It was in every entertainment paper and everything.
Completely made it up in your basement.
Totally made it up. It was I basically spent $1,000 on publicity for the new book that I had coming out.
So I find that deliriously delightful. Many people do. Other creators want to murder you. Because that shouldn't work. It works every time. It's worked for decades. You're like Lucy with the football. It works every time. It drives people nuts. And every time, I laugh every time. But other people go, oh, what's he like? Why does he do that? What is wrong with him? And then I will relate this story about you, which was when we were working on Ultimate Fantastic Four together. I was having a hard time co-writing. I literally was struggling with where my voice should be and where your voice would be, and you were generally like zen about it, like, yeah, do whatever you want to do, man. Don't worry about it. Just go. If you want to write it, go write it. And you did. You let me just kind of stomp all over it because I was being crazy. And then what I didn't know is that when it was done, you had called our editor and said, you know, because we were splitting basically the money for the book, you said, give it to Brian. And so give him the royalties. He did all the work. I wouldn't feel comfortable taking that.
Did I really do that? That sounds so unlike me.
Not only did you do that, you never told me, and I found out like months later that you did it. So it was like I couldn't even stop you from doing it. You picked up the check without, you know, showing me that you did it.
Let me tell you about a guy called Jesus I learned a lot from. You know?
But here's the thing. I tell people who know you this story, nobody believes it. Not one person has said, nah, that sounds like mine.
There must be this weird, nice side to me that I don't even recognize. That's amazing.
I think I bring out, there's a side of you, there's a Jewishness in you that is trying to get out. And when I come, I feel this with other people too, but you, I feel, I want to be Jewish. Why do I want to be Jewish? I don't even know why, but you do. Anyway, like you talk about Seinfeld a lot with me, like you
That's
just.
true, yeah. But I feel when we hang out, it's like Curb Your Enthusiasm in 3D. It's amazing, you know.
See, it's funny, to me, it's like watching The Commitments. The older people got that joke. I couldn't think of a more recent King of Scotland. I couldn't think of one. But we're supposed to do Q&A, right?
Oh, of course.
Are we supposed to do Q&A? Is there a Q with an A? Because we do have,
There's people here.
before we do Q&A, I do want to take a moment and give a special shout out to the people at C2E2, and particularly Chris DeLando for putting this on for us, because getting Mark here is now a small undertaking, and literally we haven't been on a stage in years. So thank you, Chris. We love you very much. Thank you. And Chris also got us a little special treat for everyone, and not everyone, but for those of you who are brave enough to stand up and ask a question, we have a little surprise for you, an exclusive. No?
Oh, nope.
No? Never mind.
We're going to keep
I guess the exclusive is the one I was given in my room, and there's no others.
Hang on, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
Congratulations on your
Everyone who asks a question gets a hug from either Brian or I, though. That's as good as we can get.
But you will pick which one hugs you.
Hi, I'm Ben from Green Bay, Wisconsin. And I just wanted to tell Brian that he got me back into comic books after a long time, and it really means a lot to me now because I'm here with my son, and he and I get to share a lot of things because of that. So I just wanted to say thank you very much, sir, for getting me back into it.
I was going to make a joke, but thank you. That's super sweet. No, I have a 5-year-old son, and he's really into it, like super, super into it. So I know exactly what that feels like. Like I've had kids into our stuff all, you know, for the last 15 years. My daughter's way into graphic novels, but my son just walks around and follows me around and talks about Black Panther all day. It's a completely different situation. And Pitch is great. He's a fountain of good Superman stories. It's really good.
My middle daughter, I've got 3 daughters. My middle one's only 6, and she made her first comic 2 weeks ago. And she's the only one of my kids who's done this. And I used to do it all the time when I was a kid. I've got my kids all into comics, but she actually drew her own comic all the way from start to finish, lettered it and everything, stapled it, scanned it on the printer. I don't even know how to work the printer. And she stapled it, and then she took it to a family wedding. I mentioned this yesterday in the panel, and she made £55, which is about $60, and sold it to relatives. And I said, why did you choose the wedding? And she said they would feel they have to buy it because their family. It was amazing.
Wow, that kid has learned.
The legend continues. You know?
I did have a question too. I was going to ask Mark, what is your favorite alcohol?
I'll tell you the ones I don't like. That's probably easier, you know. Right. So like, I think I'm not crazy about. Actually, I like that too. I was going to say Bacardi, but I've got a taste for that recently, so I kind of like everything. But I like fattening stuff, anything that will make me gain weight, you know. So like I like Guinness. I drink a lot of Guinness, and I like to put Baileys into the Guinness if I feel sophisticated. Try and gain a little extra weight, you know. So.
Can I get that handshake?
Of course. Come over. Let's make it a hug. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, Mr. Anderson from New York City. I was wondering if you guys have brand new creator-owned ideas that you want to make into comic books soon, outside of the publishers.
Well, yeah, I mean, we both just announced pretty big deals in this area. He sold his soul to Netflix, and they own every word he says as he says it, right? And I just signed with DC and Warner Brothers, and we're bringing Jinx World. Everything that we did, plus brand new books, brand new book with me and Michael Gaydos, our first new book since Jessica Jones, and David Mack and I are doing a book called Cover, and thank you, and new Powers, new Murder Incorporated, new Scarlet, all coming through DC Vertigo this summer. Yeah.
Same here, you know, I went completely creator-owned a few years back when I left Marvel, but then I sold my company last year to Netflix, and signed a big deal with Netflix to stay there for years and just do the sequels to the stuff that you've seen and create new content for them. So we're creating them as television shows and movies, and I'm going to do 4 of those also as comic books every year too. So it's kind of, I mean, life hasn't changed that much, weirdly. I'm still just sitting at a computer typing. I wanted to be like Bruce Wayne. What's happened? How come I'm still just sitting typing and on Twitter all day, you know? So I've done something wrong.
So you left Marvel. That you left.
I left in 2009.
Okay, no one was totally sure that you left. You kind of just walked out.
I drifted out. I didn't want to make a scene.
So you finished your Old Man Logan run.
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't.
I was done.
All
Then
right,
I just.
all right,
I
okay. All right.
I just didn't
There was
show up.
rumor. There was rumor. All right.
Hi, I'm Danielle. My question is for Brian. How much is your Jewishness going to inform your take on Superman?
Well, yeah, it's funny because I mentioned that, you know, Superman was created by 2 little Jewish boys from Cleveland. I'm a little Jewish boy from Cleveland.
I think they were Catholics, actually.
And no. And don't take this from me. And so I had mentioned there's a deep connection, and there's a lot of Judaism in the origin of Superman as well. And I brought that up, and that, of course, panicked the alt-right that we were going to have a bris or something. I don't know what they thought I was going to do. Man of Steel #1 is a big circumcision issue. But
it would have to be Kryptonian steel if you're getting that foreskin off. It's gonna be
I got it all worked out. It's a piece of the source wall. We know how to do it. So
when that foreskin is removed, would it turn to kryptonite? Would that actually become a deadly thing for Superman?
well, that's next year's event. It's Crisis on, anyway, so
It must be called Fantastic Foreskin. Fantastic Foreskin.
by the way, you laugh it up coming from Netflix next year. Fantastic Foreskin. He will not that will not be able to stop. Anyway, so I just think there's a deep spirituality in the character that comes from that origin, and I'm going to find that. So it's not like he's going to start talking, you know, like Jerry Seinfeld or anything. It's not gonna. I'm not gonna Jew him up. He's not a Jewish character, but but people would tweet me that go, Superman's not Jewish. He's American. This is.
I'm going to have to send you a book. A friend of mine called Howard Jacobson, that's a Jewish intellectual back in the UK, wrote a whole book about Superman's Jewishness. You're going to love it. It's amazing. The bottle city of Kandor, you know, being like the lost tribe and all this kind of thing. It's amazing. I'll send it over. You'll love it. Have you seen the book?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm writing Superman. And you have me on mute, but unmute me, you'll see it's Superman everywhere. It's just all Superman anyway.
And I'll take that hug from Brian.
Oh yeah.
Oh, here.
Where are you? I can't see anything. Are you right there? Okay. Here. Hold this Wi-Fi.
Okay. Hug and a handshake? Interesting. That was a hug and a handshake. You're out of control.
That's exhausting.
Good morning, guys. I'm Harold,
Morning.
local guy from Chicago. Just a general question. You guys have an influence on the industry that is amazing. From Old Man Logan to Alias, I'm a huge fan, great stuff. Where do you guys see the industry as a whole when it's compared to print media 5 to 10 years from now?
I've got a theory about this. I've got theories about everything, but I think we're coming into the most amazing period in comics. And I actually think we've already had an amazing thing because guys who owned their characters have seen the rewards of them being on movies and TV shows and things. But I think we have another print resurgence coming up as well, because there's a 20-year cycle in comics, you know, and like there's booms and busts. And it's been a quiet time. This last decade has been a little quieter than the previous decade. You know, 2000 to 2010, Marvel had a lot of big spikes, DC as well, you know, but it's been a little quieter over the last few years. But I think you can just smell it in the air. Like something that gets people back into comic shops is the thing that spikes everything up again for the next few years. You know, we had it with Civil War, the Ultimate Line, all that kind of thing. But I think Brian's Superman, genuinely, it's quite a monumental, I'm totally serious, I think it's a monumental thing. It's like when Kirby came over in the 70s to DC, everybody was like, what the hell, that's the Marvel guy? So I think Brian coming over and at the same time multiplying that by Superman being reinvented, it's a huge deal. So I think you're going to have a lot of people coming in and, you know, all ships left in that tide, you know, so I think people are going to come in, buy Superman, but they're also going to check out other stuff while they're there. I think DC has massively upped their game, by the way. The guys are doing a brilliant job just now. Like, the Batman books are on fire. Having Brian doing the Superman books, you've got Scott going over to do Justice League. It's looking good. You know, I think you're going to have a lot of people coming in and sticking around, and everyone will benefit from it. So I think really good times ahead for the next 10 years. I think it's going to be great.
And that's, you know, also you got to look outside the superhero military-industrial complex and look at what's going on, you know, with like Raina's work and the other graphic novelists that are having massive success outside of the comic book market.
Yeah.
I think that on top of what you just discussed is going to, the table is set for something very special to happen. And I'm excited for the creators that are just coming in right now, and we know some of their names, and some of the names at Marvel right now, they're just coming in like Donnie and Matthew Rosenberg and Ed Brisson and Kelly Thompson. There are some genuinely powerful voices just now about to put their foot down. And honestly, when I was making my pros and cons list about making the switch, it was like, well, if I do go, that kind of maybe frees up some books.
15 books a month?
Yeah, but it maybe frees some stuff up to let some of the new people who I'm genuinely fans of and friends with, maybe I should get the hell out of the way and let them have what we had, which is, remember, we had
like run,
carte blanche, go nuts, have a party.
Yeah.
And that's where the Ultimate Line came from, and that's where, you know, a lot of the bigger choices that we made came from. So, yeah, it made me feel like Marvel's set to win, DC's set to win, Random House is set to win, Scholastic, everyone's really kind of set to win, where reading is, and we know like people aren't reading like they should in general. And when you see comics thriving in that kind of culture, I get excited. Imagine if people really read it.
Well, the weird thing is, like, what we're trying to do at Netflix is also take advantage of the fact that there's going to be shows and books out at the same time, you know, of the same thing. So imagine, you know, the Game of Thrones Walking Dead relationship with print has been incredible, but you haven't always seen that translated with Marvel and DC characters. You know, it hasn't always spiked the sales. So what we were trying to do, we're launching our first big book in June. We're doing The Magic Order, the book I'm doing with Olivia Coipel. And we're going
Hold on, for those of you who don't speak Scottish, he said they're doing The Magic Order with Copiel through
should have a
Netflix
signer down
in the
here.
summer.
But what our plan is like to do a launch like nobody's ever seen before. Like Marvel and DC, you know, they don't have the deep pockets, I guess, that Netflix has got too. But I mean, the campaign is going to be insane. When this thing launches in June, it's going to be like a movie. You know, it's going to be like a big, big launch for this comic. And this is a year before the TV show. I mean, we're doing this just in the print side of things just now. So, and I think when that's a success, there'll be more of that too. And it's going to catch fire around everything, like Amazon, Hulu, all this kind of thing. Because these companies are all more and more being owned by the same people. So there's no reason that they couldn't work hand in hand. Like, I always thought Marvel and DC should work more hand in hand between print and the movie side of things. But that's our plan with Netflix going forward. And I think we're just at the beginning of something amazing. I think it'll be a couple of years before you see it really come to fruition. But I think we're entering the best period comics has ever had. It's so exciting to be in the inside here.
Yeah, totally.
Thank you, gentlemen, and appreciate you both coming to Chicago.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Josh. I'm from here in Chicago, and my question is for Brian.
Yes.
For a character like Superman, who's been around since 1938, DC has always tried to keep him relevant and sometimes not succeed. Without giving too much away, what is your approach to keeping him relevant?
The trunks. Have we not made that clear? The underpants are back. That's it. No, honestly, you're hitting on what I wrote. I actually wrote like a 7-page manifesto about this exact subject that I gave everyone at DC, whether they wanted it or not. And it was about Superman's relatability and the things in his life that are unbelievably relatable that aren't really dealt with that much. And being an orphan, being adopted, being in a, his marriage is a tricky, he's married.
You keeping a marriage?
Don't worry about it. And there's so much about him that's very relatable. His relationship to all of his parents, all of his friends, and we're going to dig into that. I love Clark. I love Clark Kent. I love him, and he's really fascinating to write. He's actually more interesting to write than Superman. Superman's a lot of fun to write, but Clark's a really interesting character who's made some interesting choices. So we're going to dive in, and I can't wait to see what people react to, and positively and negatively. So we'll see. All right.
My name's Justin from Fort Wayne, and I just had a question as far as like your writing process, like with all the financial investments and the impact on pop culture. Like, do you feel a lot of like self-doubt or insecurity, or even like when you take over a book like from Scott Snyder, like do you have to get competitive and think like, fuck Scott Snyder, I'm gonna write a better run than him, or like where does that?
Well, I don't have to do that, but I guess kind of no.
I love the passion that he said that with. That was amazing. I hope Scott's listening to this.
Yeah. There's going to be some headline said, "Fuck Scott Snyder, said Bendis."
That's going to be, that'll be all over Newsarama tomorrow.
No, that is an interesting question. It's one I think about you in this area a lot too, because there is I'm always fascinated by my internal duality of the my neurotic self-doubt and my unbelievable ego that wrestle. And as a writer, that like there is an ego that's involved. With I would like you to read my story, but the craft of it comes with all this.
But writers, they have to be egomaniacs by our nature. Because if you think about it, we think that what we have to say is so interesting that other people want to hear it all over the world, and not only hear it, pay money to hear it. I mean, that's weird, isn't it? It's kind of a weird way to make a living. So
when you put it that way, yeah.
Yeah. But so it makes you raise your game. You think this is $3.99 every time somebody reads this. So I always think I don't want somebody feeling ripped off.
Yeah.
But in terms of feeling that you have to up your game with other creators, like have you ever taken over a book that was beloved just before you came on? Because Matthew Vaughn, the guy who directed Kingsman, he said to me it was amazing doing X-Men First Class because everybody hated X3, and he said it was great, because expectations were so low.
No, but we grew up in Frank Miller.
Yeah.
The story of Frank Miller is that Daredevil was going to get canceled.
Yeah.
So get a book like that and blow the roof off.
Alan Moore with Swamp Thing.
If they cancel it,
Yeah.
they were going to cancel it anyhow. If you
Yeah.
save it, you're Frank Miller,
Yeah.
right? So that would be my philosophy most times is
Yeah.
take a book that is struggling.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, actually, Superman's actually doing really well.
Yeah.
They actually just put down like 3 or 4 really good Superman stories this year. So I went, oh shit, get the landing, damn. No, but what you learn as you get older, and I will say that, and I'm sure Mark agrees that though earlier weird things would motivate you. Yeah, maybe jealousy, or like I would be like obsessed with Mike Allred's success with Mad Men, because we were struggling indie guys, and Mad Men had yo-yos and cups and merchandise, and I would be like, why don't I have this? But I've apologized to him. But and we work together. Everything's fine. But that would motivate some. Jealousy would motivate a little bit. But as you get older, that all goes away, and it all becomes about craft. It becomes about this thing costs $3.99 or whatever. I would like this to be really good, and I would like it I would like to be honest, and that's my thing.
How do you
the
respond
last
to
few years
criticism?
is how much honesty is in this book.
Like, would you say criticism over the years has affected you in different ways? Like, say, for example, when you were doing Jinx in your late 20s and everything, and in your 30s when you're doing Ultimate Spider-Man, and then in your 40s and so on, has comic book criticism ever changed the way you feel about the job or the way you feel about a particular story? Or does it wash over you as you get older? Or what? How
Well,
do
it
you
doesn't
respond?
wash over me. I'll say that, and creators know this to be true, a good critique, you already knew it.
Yeah.
Like you even
That's
though
when it's worse when they're right.
yeah, that
yeah.
like when someone tells you something and it bothers you, it's
Yeah.
because you already knew it and did it anyhow,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
you didn't get away with whatever
Yeah,
bullshit
yeah.
you were trying, right?
Yeah. It's like
So
being caught for a murder, isn't it? You know?
Say again?
It's like being caught for a murder. You know, you've done a bad, like if you
Oh, yeah,
killed
yeah,
someone,
yeah,
you know, it's,
yeah.
it's like a bad story, and you think you can maybe slip it out there, and if somebody spots.
Or you've
yeah.
seen other people get away with it.
Yeah.
Like my favorite things are some of the things Spielberg and Scorsese have gotten away with.
Yeah.
You can see they're getting away with, or they'll even tell you. Like there's a thing in the Player by Robert Altman where if you watch the Criterion edition, he points out a bullshit thing he did in the story. He goes, "This is complete horseshit. It's
Yeah.
I just needed to get to the next scene." And I think about it all the time. Like
Yeah.
everyone does it. Everyone does it. And I do like that he raised his hand and said, "That's I bullshitted." But anyway, going back to it was I've never heard a critique that made me like something more
Right.
or less of mine. Like if I don't like it and you do, I'm not
Yeah.
going to like it anymore.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
you don't like it, but I still do,
Yeah.
you're not. It's still my baby. It's still my baby. I love my baby. But I find myself how I'm grading myself has
Yeah.
changed over the years. I used to grade myself on different things, but as I said now, honesty is what how truthful is this page?
Right.
Is this the most honest version of the story I can tell?
Yeah.
And with that comes all the humor and character stuff. So that's become my goal over the last. I think it's wrapped around parenthood a little bit as well. Like don't you feel like with your kids, like no more bullshit. You got to be on all the time. You got to be your best version of yourself as much as humanly possible all the time, which includes the version of you as a writer.
Well, it's funny. I was talking to a director the other day who said that having kids, he feels makes you lose your edge as a director.
no.
But I think the opposite.
No, I don't think
Because he said to me that Spielberg and all those guys, they loved the movies up until they had kids and then didn't like them after. But I felt as soon as I had children, oh my God, I have to feed these people. You know, and I thought I better really up my game now so I can feed these kids.
No, I even had, years ago, and Elisa will remember this, we went to a parent-teacher conference,
Yeah.
Olivia, and she was really little, and I never showed my books to the kids. Right? I don't go, "Hey, gather around, everyone! Defenders that just showed up in the mail." No, I don't really do that. But the books are everywhere. They see it. The kids and they gravitate to what they gravitate to. And we were at a parent-teacher conference, and they opened up my daughter's desk, and she had taken an Ultimate Spider-Man trade to school and had just read it so much it was almost dust.
My kid would have sold it. You know, I like the fact yours was reading.
But it was super sweet. Yeah. And then I realized in my neurosis, I wasn't sharing my work with my kids, which was dumber than overly sharing. Yeah. And so I started opening that door more, which was a good move. But it also kind of said, here are 4 little people that I think the world of, that think the world of me. And eventually they're going to be old enough to read this stuff and understand it. Mm-hmm. I would really like it not to suck. I'm gonna angle it right on there. Yeah. I would like in 40 years, I would like one of my daughters to turn to her kid and go, "Your dad was pretty goddamn good. He was a good writer." But cut to last weekend, my 15-year-old daughter was in her room watching Netflix, and she, not to spoil anything from Jessica Jones, but she texted me, "Am I about to see my mother and father," there's 2 characters named after us on the show, "be brutally murdered on Netflix?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sweetie, I'm sorry. I didn't know what to do. I go, sorry." So it's all mixed up. It's a very complicated thing for me, but it keeps me honest.
I'm Luigi from the Mushroom Kingdom. I just want to say to Mark, you got me into comics reading when Civil War. So thank you for my addiction.
Thank you for the royalties. That's amazing.
And then my question is for Brian. With your move to DC, is there any other characters that you have an interest in writing at all?
Oh yeah. Oh dear Lord. Superman is just the beginning of the thing. I don't write one book. That's not my deal. We have on top of Jinx World, I have an imprint that Elisa and I are curating for DC that's going to be very exciting. Creators we're very excited about, characters we absolutely adore. Some are big fan favorites, some are things that I love that I'm excited to try to convince you are worth loving, and so you're gonna see a lot come throughout the calendar year. Yeah, and also just even in Man of Steel, I got to write my first Batman scene, my first Green Lantern scene, my first Wonder Woman. It was cool. I never got to write these characters before.
Yeah, so.
It's really exciting.
Can I get a handshake from Mark?
Yeah, absolutely.
But not from me, I refuse. I won't do it.
Do you want a manly handshake or just a gentle one? What would you? Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
You're not getting applause for that, I'm sorry. No, not gonna happen. Oh, he is, he's getting it. There he goes.
Thank you. Cool. Nice to meet you. Thank you very much.
We have a lot of creators in the audience today, too. We're really, really happy you're here, guys. I don't want to start naming names in case I forget anybody, but thanks to everyone who came out today. It's really, really sweet. We love you guys. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jairo from Cicero, and my question is for Michael. I really loved the Ultimate Spider-Man comics when I was a kid, and I was wondering if you're going to bring that sense of adventure and wonder and awe into the Superman comics?
No. I will say, have you found lately that, I don't know what had happened, but where all of a sudden it was when I was a kid, I read your book, and you're like, oh.
I saw a guy yesterday who had a grey beard, and he said to me, oh, when I was a kid, I absolutely loved your Ultimates run, you know, and I was like, you've got a grey beard? This is impossible. You know?
Well, and I also, every time someone does that to me, and you're super sweet for saying that. I'm not making fun, I swear to God. I'm talking about my own neurosis. But I remember I was at a Pittsburgh show, and I came up to George Perez as a creator, as a working creator, and he was really good to me when I was a kid, like very helpful, like way more than he needed to be. And I couldn't wait as an established creator to storm up to him and say, thank you, I made it because of you. Right? And I did. I came up to him, and I said, you were very good to me when I was a kid. And he goes, you're not young. Like I don't know, how old was I? Jesus Christ. Anyway, so I think about, and Bill Sienkiewicz too.
Can I, before we actually answer any other questions, can I please tell the guys the David Mamet story? This is like, the only reason I flew here was to tell this story, right? So like, and I just realized I hadn't said it yet. Now, we work from home, you know, we're all dotted all over the world, we never get to see each other. So what we love doing is just playing shit pranks on each other and everything, right? So like, I love doing it, I get bored. And like, and for a while, way back whenever we first started working together, Brian was doing Ultimate Spider-Man, and I discovered that you could pretend to be famous people if you sent it from a Hotmail account, right? And I used to do this all the time.
Remember, we were meeting famous people for the first time.
Yeah,
like, it wasn't impossible.
And we heard a rumor that Brian's favorite writer, David Mamet, read Silver Surfer, right? We just heard this rumor, and that's what gave it a kind of grain of truth, this thing, right? So I opened up a Hotmail account, like David Mamet 1947 or something, you know? And, and I sent it to Brian, and I was like, hey, Brian, I don't know if you know me, but, you know, I'm a writer myself. And like, Brian's obsessed with David Mamet, right? To try and put this in perspective, right? He adores him. And I said, I just want to say what an amazing job you're doing in Ultimate Spider-Man. You're kind of my hero and everything, you know, and just wrote this gushing thing, right? And within about 3 seconds, I had a reply, right? It was amazing. and Brian says, you won't believe this. You're my absolute writing hero. You're the reason I am a writer. And it was this amazing thing, right? So then I thought, right, I've got him. This is going to be good. So like So I replied and I said, listen, I don't know if this is maybe overstepping the bounds, but I'd love to co-write something with you one day. Would you be interested? And there was just this, within about 1 second, there was a reply just saying, yes, anything you want to do, anything, you know. And I said, I've got this plan. I'd love to do a Spider-Man story, but I'm so uncertain of myself in that world. I would love an expert like you to hold my hand and do Spider-Man with me, you know? And like, I've got some ideas, and you were like, I'm very interested in hearing these ideas.
Here's the part he doesn't know. Here's the email comes, here's me in my office. Just pacing, just out of my mind.
So I started to hit him with the worst ideas that I could think of, right? Coming from David Mamet. So he had this incredible social dilemma of, does he offend David Mamet by saying these are bad? So there was like Space Spider-Man, where Spider-Man goes into space. Cave Spider-Man, where he fights dinosaurs and everything. It's like just real, total shit, right? Like absolute shit.
Do you remember the final straw?
What was the? Oh well, but then you wrote back a lovely thing, and you were so polite. You just said, you know, some of this stuff's really interesting, you know, but we should maybe. I've got some ideas. We could maybe bounce some stuff around. And then the next reply I said was, "Fuck you, Brian, if you don't like my ideas." Along those lines. And it was like,
rewrote
I'll maybe go and ask Mark Millar to do this then instead, right? And that's when he knew it was me immediately, and he just came back with, "Fuck you, Millar," you know, like
It's a little. It's very funny. There's a part you're missing. You kept going. Because I kept saying, if this is really you, Mr. Mamet, I was a little, because I was aware you have a history of pranks, some of which are my favorite pranks ever, and you have not gone public with. That the person who was the victim of the prank still does not know it was a prank. So I'm aware.
What did that involve? What was the rough
there was the time you had the Italian editor of Vogue call the Vertigo editors and tell them they were going to be on.
They were going to be models.
Yeah, and the comics creator that you wrote a letter to, I will not say who it was, and said you were the head of the Ku Klux Klan and you had a new superhero called White Power, and you wanted to know what their page rate was and if they were interested in.
It's amazing. It's amazing how that would be the end of my career if that one ever came out. You know?
No, there was a comics creator. He called. I won't say it was, but he said he goes. We have a new. What we want to do is we want to be more like not anti-people, just pro-white. And so we have this character that's called White Power, and we just want to know what your page rate is, and if you're interested, and here's our budget. Remember, you gave it like, you put like, it was $50,000 enough, right? Like, enough for the person to go.
And the guy, it was amazing. This guy was like, there's no way he was ever writing for the Ku Klux Klan, but once I gave the page rate, he was really interested. It was like,
like, does it have to be under my name? So I was aware of this going on. And so when you get emails from David Mamet at 2 in the morning, even though you desperately want it to be true, and he was getting me good, because what had happened was, and really where you were kicking my ass was, me and Joe had just had a meeting with Howard Stern about making comics,
right.
and I just signed a deal with Charlize Theron, and we were all like puffed up, full of ourselves, and you're like, I'm gonna knock, like it was I needed you to like come in there and just settle down, little man, and so your last, and I kept going, if this is really you, Mr. Mamet, and then you go, well, actually, I have an idea. It's been around in my head. Let me know what you think of it. They go, I have this idea where the Clone Saga, do you remember that? Now you're going to remember. The Clone Saga never ended. And what it is that Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, and Web of Spider-Man, and Ultimate Spider-Man, and Amazing Spider-Man are all clones of the original Peter Parker, but they don't know there's a bunch of Peter Parkers running around. And then I wrote back, fuck you, Mark. That is a Mark idea. So there you go. Anyway, so that's the David Mamet story.
The only other time that I remember coming close to us loving so much was, do you remember we almost broke Brian K. Vaughan? We started a rumor that Brian K. Vaughan was 27, right, at the time, and we started an online rumor he was lying and he was in his 40s, right? And he got so angry about it that he went off and got his driving license and posted it online for people to see, you know. I think more than any book we've ever done, I think that's the thing I'm most proud of from that decade, I think.
No, I'm about to make you more proud of the David Mamet thing, because this is part you don't know, right? I have met David Mamet since then, right? I've interviewed him for a CBR. He actually did a graphic novel. Years later, he wrote and drew a graphic novel kind of making fun of just the clichéness of superheroes about a guy who turns into a bug and he just sits there. It's basically, that's the joke. But CBR said, hey, David Mamet, do you want to interview him? Because he's got a request to be interviewed. Do you want? I go, yeah. And then even then, I'm sitting there going, if this is still Mark, God damn it. This is years later, and it's not beyond him. It's not beyond him to like put on the calendar, wait 6 years, do it again. So So I'm on the phone. I do the interview with David Mamet. It was a terrible interview. I did a terrible. I Chris Farley'd it like you wouldn't believe. It was. I couldn't. I desperately needed him to know how much I knew about him, which is the worst kind of interview, right? And while I was doing it, I'm like, this is terrible. Stop. And he was gracious and amazing. Cut to 2 summers ago. We were on the Sony lot doing Powers, and we have. One half of a floor is all like the Powers writers' room and all of our stuff. The other half is a casting agency who's casting a lot of big Sony stuff and Netflix stuff and a lot of actors, like big actors, small actors, have been coming in the whole time, and it's fun. Like every day, like who is that and who's there, blah blah. Then one week, David Mamet and Al Pacino are casting a Broadway play they were doing that only has one other role in it. So all these really well-known young actors who are playing like the assistant to Al Pacino's character are there. So all day long, Al Pacino is yell acting in the hallways, like wah, like that all day with David Mamet dialogue. And we're just we don't know any of this is going on. We're just in the writer's room breaking story, and one of the writers comes in and goes, David Mamet's in the hallway. And I go, God damn, Mark. Because I don't believe now that David Mamet is behind that door, because Mark fucked with me 8 years ago. And I stormed out into the hallway, and there was David Mamet. And I just beeline for him, and I embarrassed myself once again, but it's like, I am your biggest fan. and he handled it and walked away. And I literally started to tell the story about what you did and walked away because I realized he doesn't know you, he doesn't know me, he doesn't get this, stop it, walk away, and I did. So there you go. So the joke continues.
It's going to go on for the rest of your life.
There you
I'm
go.
going to get you again. Okay.
There you go. All right, sorry.
Hi, Brian and Mark. My name's Adam. I'm a huge Superman fan from Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, yay.
I wanted to ask you, Brian, I'm so excited to see what you're going to do with Superman. My question is, I'm curious, is there an aspect of the mythology you like, if you're allowed to say, you want to play with, or I just started watching the show Krypton, and it's sort of like, wow, this has never been explored before. Like, is there anything like that jumps out at you that you want to, oh, wait, let's do Candor, or let's do all these kind of cool things that really haven't been touched on?
Yeah, no, there was a couple cool things. One of the worst parts of our job is am I creating this or am I remembering this, right? Like, there's so many Superman stories. Is this a story I read when I was a wee young lad, talking in your native language? And so, there's quite a few things. I actually called up DC. I go, has anyone ever done this about this? And they're like, oh, no. And so, we have a couple things I'm pretty excited about, including what's going to happen in Man of Steel. That's a big, giant bomb being dropped into the legacy of Superman that is brand new and just gives us all kinds of new story possibilities for him. So, yeah. But, man, have you been back to Cleveland?
Yeah.
It's gone, dark. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like Back to the Future 2. They have a casino in the middle of the city where it used to be this lovely mall that I used to work at. Yeah. And we went back there, and it's a casino and all the stuff that comes with the casino. So it's like this evilness. It's like evil Cleveland. It's fantastic. We almost moved back.
Hey guys, I'm Peter.
We only a couple more minutes, so let's we'll try to breeze them through quickly.
Hey guys, I'm Peter. I'm from Sandwich, Illinois. That's a real place people live. And my question was, in an age when so many people consume content in bulk with Netflix streaming and things like that, and in comics with everything being reprinted and with Comixology Unlimited and Marvel Unlimited, has that changed the way you guys approach your process or the way you guys think about writing comics in any way?
Do you know, it's funny, I remember when I was starting out in comics back in the 90s, some editors said to me, now there's video games, there's all these things that are competing with comics, nobody wants to read comics anymore, and that's why they said sales were dipping. But the honest truth was, if it's good, people come. I think if you do good work, people show up. If people are coasting, people stay away. So I think no matter how much competition's out there, if you do a good job, if you do a good book, people just show up. So I think there's nothing to fear. All these things are our allies, all the streaming services and all this kind of thing. Just embrace it and just do the best comics you can do.
But I love the thing that has come into our lives the last decade is people binging comics like the Marvel Unlimited service, where people will literally read every issue of Ultimate Spider-Man over a weekend and then report to me about it. And no, but it's a lovely experience. It's hard to describe. It's someone who's like, I just read 12 years of your work,
Yeah.
and at once, it wasn't meant to be read that way. So you panic a little, like, oh, but I'm so grateful that it seems to, like, you and I seem to read well in that kind of binge, because we did not know that was coming.
No,
right?
no,
That's a format we did not perceive. So I'm immensely grateful. I personally love it. I do. It's one of my favorite things about comics lately is people just diving into such a deep dive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
We have time for two
But
more
it-
questions.
but it doesn't-
One on the
it-
other side, one on this side.
But if anything, the only thing to answer his question, it doesn't really change how I'm writing, other than if I think of something that would really pay off for someone who's binging, I'll do it. Like if I can do a setup and then 19 issues later do a punchline and that wouldn't read to the monthly reader, but absolutely, I love it. It's fantastic.
Oh, hi, I'm Jonathan. And
Hi, John.
I'm a big fan of both of your works, and I was just wondering what first inspired you to start writing comics.
For me, I think it was Stan Lee and Alan Moore, I think, as well. Like, how old are you?
Oh, I'm 13.
I was exactly 13. It was 1983. I met Alan Moore when I was 13, and he came to Glasgow, where I live in Scotland, and it was the idea that somebody did comic books as a job. I was like, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard. I knew Stan Lee did it, but he seemed like a mythical character, you know, who lived in America and everything. But this was a guy who lived in the UK, where I live, and he was so charismatic and so interesting. He sat with me for an hour. It was just before he got really famous, where he had time to still stand and chat. And he must have been bored stiff, you know. I mean, I asked him questions for like a full hour, you know. But I remember thinking this was like the word of God then, you know. It was just like suddenly Alan Moore said it was a good idea to go and do it. And I did, and I've never seen him again, you know, weirdly, because he sort of, maybe he's avoiding me, I don't know, you know, but he sort of retired from comics.
He will not take responsibility for you. He's got enough shit on his plate.
But for me, and for Miller World, it was Stan Lee. I was interviewing Stan on the phone, and Stan said to me, you should try and create your own characters. And I thought, well, you know, you don't often get advice from Stan Lee, you know, so I put the phone down and just did Wanted. I mean, I literally started it that day after Stan recommended giving it a try. You know, so
and I was a young man, and I was reading comics, and when I just got to that age where you're that day where you realize someone made these, you know, there's names in the credits.
Yeah.
This is someone's job. I want, this is a job I want this job. This is, if giving someone this feeling, this escapism, this excitement is a job you can have. Yeah, fine. How you do it? And I think from that moment, I never took a day off. Like
Did you ever consider anything else? Did
no.
you ever? You know?
No. In fact, when I didn't get into art school, there's been like stumbling blocks, and you go, oh. And then I look back. Oh yeah, I never had that moment of doubt. I never sat at a bar and had a crossroads. I just was like, storming ahead. You did too, right? You
well, it helps. I can't do anything else. Like I've got no other skills. So like that really focuses your mind. You know, you're kind of like it's either this or you starve to death. You know. So.
Yeah, and when you find out, by the way, doing it for a living. Giving people that feeling is 100 times better than getting that feeling, and also doing something that sucks and giving them that feeling is 100 times worse on your end than it is on their end as well. So,
can I ask you a quick question? Because this would be an amazing thing to round it out with. Are you thinking about working in comics when you're older?
Oh, maybe.
No pressure.
Because we're both telling you must.
Alan Moore told Stan Lee to tell you you should make comics. All right, we got 20 seconds. That's what they're telling us.
I'm Johnny I'm local. I wanted to ask Mark who his favorite artist was that he collaborated with, and can I get a hug?
Yes, to everything. My favorite artist is Olivier Coipel, who's doing my new book. but genuinely, I think it's the best art I've ever had in any of my books. Like I keep sending it around to everybody saying, look at this stuff. I mean, he's always been amazing, but he's somehow got better. And it's out in June 13th. June 13th.
There you go.
Anyway, hug time.
All right, while he's hugging, I'll say to you guys, as I said earlier in the panel, we used to come here. We came here as young, up-and-coming professionals. We came here as indie creators. So to come here and sit on the stage and talk to you guys and reminisce as established creators is nuts to me. It's great. It's crazy. So we're done. So I just want to say thank you, Mark, for all the kindnesses you've done me over the years and friendship that you've given. Thanks to all of you guys for all the support and love and comments you've given us over the years.
I just want to say again, like, our time at Marvel was a fun time, wasn't it? You know, like, we obviously became great friends immediately. We were forced in rooms together with strangers.
No,
but
we were
somehow
like put together like the Spice Girls.
Yeah,
We're like
yeah.
a boy band. Yeah.
And we all instantly just had it off. It was great. There was no better crowd to work with. And I said a thing in 2006. It was like we'd been working together 5 years. There was 42 of us around the big table. I don't know if you remember this. There was a lot of editors and us. And I said, every single person in here is actually awesome. Like, we love hanging out to the point where even after work, all of us went to the restaurant and to the bar after work at night time and still hung out. I said, we'll never work anywhere again where everybody has this crazy synergy and everything. And Brian was just lovely to deal with. You know, like I say, in 18 years, I've never known you to be any different. You know, Joe Quesada, all these people, all been brilliant. It's one of those times I think we'll all look back on as a great period in our lives. It's been a lovely 18 years that we had.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.